First of all, everybody, this case has been going on since 2000, I want to say 2011. It's been 14 years. 14 years of us pursuing, in the beginning, paternity, and then after that, the damages and all the things that go along with litigating fraud. Let's get that clear, right? There has been no maternity after that. What we're doing right now in California against Mr. Carter, JayZ, we are looking for damages, everybody. We're not looking to go back and do any kind of do-over, if you will, of a state court. Let's get that clear, right? This case that we're doing is not about paternity. It is about fraud and fraud upon the court.
What happens when one of the most powerful men in music is forced to confront a secret he's allegedly been running from for decades? Imagine building an empire so untouchable that no one dares to question you until one person refuses to back down. This isn't just a story about family drama. This is about power, fear, and the kind of accusations that could bring a billionaire to his knees. For over a decade, whispers have followed JayZ. Whispers of a child he never claimed. Whispers of a mother who died fighting to prove the truth. Whispers of a young man who says he's tired of being treated like a ghost. Most people brushed it off as tabloid gossip. After all, how many celebrities have faced paternity rumors? How many have had to deal with opportunists hoping to cash in on their fame? But this case is different. It's different because it didn't die in the gossip blogs. It didn't fade away after a few headlines. It kept growing. Court filings piled up. Federal judges got involved. And along the way, the accusations shifted from simple paternity claims to something much darker: claims of intimidation, cover-ups, and an empire allegedly built on silencing the people who might expose it. And now, with every passing day, this story is becoming harder to ignore. Let's back up for a moment. Who is Rymir Satterthwaite? To some, he's just a 31-year-old man chasing clout by attaching his name to one of the biggest rappers of all time. To others, he's a son seeking justice, someone who's been pushed to the edge by a system that protects the rich and powerful at any cost. And at the center of it all is JayZ, the self-made mogul who went from the Marcy Projects to building our OC Nation, a billionaire with influence that stretches from Wall Street to the White House. He's built his brand on being calculated, strategic, untouchable. But this story is threatening to crack that image wide open. Because here's the thing, if JayZ has nothing to hide, why hasn't he taken a DNA test? That's the question fueling this firestorm. On the surface, it seems simple enough. Take the test, prove the kid isn't yours, and move on. But instead, JayZ has fought this battle in courtrooms for over a decade, spending more time and money avoiding the test than it would take to just get it done. And that avoidance, whether strategic or suspicious, has turned a private dispute into a public scandal. Over the next few minutes, we're going to break down the entire story. How Rymir says this all began, the legal war that spanned multiple states and even reached the Supreme Court, the shocking allegations of intimidation and manipulation, and the sudden twist that has everyone asking the same thing: what's really going on behind the scenes? This isn't just about who fathered who. This is about what happens when someone without resources goes up against someone who has them all. And as we unpack this saga, you'll see why this story isn't going away anytime soon and why the truth, when it finally comes out, might be bigger than anyone imagined. So buckle up, because this is the kind of story that forces you to question everything you think you know about fame, power, and the people we idolize.
I was 7. My mom had to sit down with me. I guess she thought I was old enough to know now, and she been saying Sean Carter, that's what she was calling him at first before she was calling it JayZ. And I really didn't know who that was because I was young and, had my little brother, and I really wasn't worrying about it. She was saying it a lot, but I really just was going along with the person I was just seeing, like the person I looked at who was taking care of me at that time. I really wasn't really trying to understand what my mom was talking about, but she constantly put it in my head like, son, it's not your father, and I really want you to know it is. This person is your father, and I just want you to know. And she continued to tell me that over the years and over the years and over the years, even until I was grown.
To understand why this story refuses to die, you have to understand who Rymir Satterthwaite is and how his life became tied to one of the most powerful names in entertainment. Rymir says his story begins in the early 1990s, when his mother, Wanda, was just 16 years old. She wasn't a celebrity. She wasn't wealthy. She was a teenage girl from Philadelphia trying to figure out her life. According to Rymir, Wanda met JayZ through friends and ended up at his aunt's apartment in Brooklyn. What happened next, she told him years later, would change everything. They hooked up, protection was used, but it failed. Aside from one follow-up visit 2 weeks later, she never saw him again. For years, Wanda raised her son with the belief that her boyfriend, Robert Graves, was the father. His name was on the birth certificate, but things didn't add up. There were whispers, suspicions, and questions that Wanda couldn't shake. By the time Rymir turned 8, she sat him down and told him what she believed to be true. JayZ was his real father. At the time, Rymir didn't fully grasp what that meant. To him, JayZ wasn't the billionaire mogul we know today. He was just a name, a rising rapper from Brooklyn. But as JayZ's fame grew, so did the weight of Wanda's revelation. What do you do when the man you believe is your father becomes one of the most famous people in the world and acts like you don't exist? In 2011, everything shifted. A DNA test proved that Robert Graves was not Rymir's biological father, and his name was legally removed from the birth certificate. For Rymir, that was the moment his mission became clear. He didn't want money. He says he wanted acknowledgement. He wanted to know where he came from. And more than anything, he wanted closure for his mother, who had spent years trying to get anyone to take her seriously. But getting answers wasn't going to be easy. Wanda had tried once before, filing a civil lawsuit for child support. It was dismissed not because of evidence, but because it was filed in the wrong state. She never refiled. Life went on. And then Wanda died, leaving Rymir with more questions than answers and a determination to finish what she started. Rymir grew up under the care of his godmother, Lily Coley, who became his fiercest advocate. Together, they started pushing harder for JayZ to take a DNA test. But according to them, JayZ didn't just refuse, he fought back in ways they never expected. Rymir claims that the battle quickly escalated beyond the courtroom. He says there were legal tactics designed to bleed them dry financially, sudden legal fees, liens on property, and endless motions meant to stall the process. But he also claims there was something darker, a campaign to intimidate him into silence. According to Rymir, someone planted a weapon in his car, setting him up for an arrest that could have ruined his life. Security footage, he says, proved the setup wasn't his doing, but the message was clear: stop pushing. Then came the allegation that shocked even his supporters. He claims his car was shot up 6 times in what he believes was another warning. For Rymir, these weren't just coincidences. They were part of a pattern, a powerful man using his influence to bury a secret that could destroy him. And yet, despite everything, Rymir didn't stop. He kept filing cases, he kept speaking out, he kept demanding the one thing he believed could solve everything: a DNA test. Which raises the question, if JayZ has nothing to hide, why not just take it?
It's not fabricated. His mama told him. And Wanda wrote an affidavit. The affidavit's been out there all this time, all these years. Now, all of a sudden,
if the story of Rymir Satterthwaite and JayZ were just about personal accusations, it might have faded away years ago. But this saga has unfolded like a chess match across America's courtrooms, a battle where every move seems designed to exhaust the other side rather than resolve the truth. Rymir's legal journey began in New Jersey, where he and his godmother, Lily Coley, first tried to compel JayZ to take a paternity test. In 2015, their case was dismissed. The reason? The court ruled it didn't have jurisdiction because JayZ allegedly didn't own property in the state. To most people, that would have been the end of the line. But Rymir's side argued that wasn't true. They pointed to evidence suggesting Jay-Z did have ties to New Jersey, even citing Beyonce's own mother, Tina Knowles, who referenced Jay-Z's New Jersey property in her book. But the dismissal stood, and Jay-Z never took the test. As the years dragged on, Rymir's filings became more aggressive, and Jay-Z's legal team responded in kind. In 2022, things escalated. Jay-Z's lawyers obtained a court injunction in New Jersey that barred Rymir and his godmother from filing any new lawsuits related to paternity without prior approval from the court. They framed it as a necessary measure to stop what they called frivolous filings and harassment. To Jay-Z's camp, this was proof that Rymir's claims had no merit. To Rymir, it was another example of a billionaire using his resources to rewrite the rules in his favor. And so, he pivoted. In 2025, Rymir filed a new lawsuit not in New Jersey, but in California, where the rules were different and where he shifted his strategy. This wasn't just about paternity anymore, it was about damages. He accused Jay-Z of using his power to manipulate legal systems, inflict emotional distress, and obstruct justice. The California court took the case seriously. On June 18, 2025, a federal judge ordered Jay-Z to respond by July 18. For the first time in years, it seemed like Jay-Z might actually have to confront the accusations head-on. But even then, Jay-Z's team pushed back. In their filing, they claimed they had only become aware of the lawsuit on June 3rd and needed more time to prepare their response. They argued that service of the lawsuit had been improper and that the entire case was just another attempt to bypass previous rulings. Court records revealed an unusual detail. Jay-Z's lawyers had even tried calling Rymir's godmother to negotiate an extension. According to those records, she hung up on them. To Rymir's supporters, that moment symbolized everything they were done playing nice. In his official response, Jay-Z doubled down on his narrative. He claimed the allegations had already been addressed and dismissed time and time again in multiple courts. He argued that Rymir and his godmother had fabricated claims, engaged in a decade-long campaign of harassment, and were now trying to circumvent a 2022 injunction that should have barred this new case altogether. But Rymir's filing told a different story. He claimed Jay-Z had possessed his DNA since 2011, suggesting that the truth was already known and deliberately being withheld. He wasn't asking for back child support. He wasn't asking to be part of Jay-Z's family. He was asking for damages for what he described as years of psychological trauma, reputational harm, and intimidation. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. It was a public one. Each filing read less like dry legal language and more like two competing stories about power. One side painted Rymir as an opportunist exploiting the system for a payday. The other side painted Jay-Z as a man so desperate to protect his image that he would weaponize the system itself. And hanging over it all was the July 18th deadline, a date that, for the first time, seemed like it might force something concrete to happen. Would Jay-Z finally be cornered into taking a DNA test? Would the court dismiss the case yet again? Or would some new twist blow the entire thing open? The countdown had begun. And everyone, from hip-hop fans to legal analysts, was watching. By the time the legal battle reached California, the story had outgrown the courtroom. What began as a question of paternity had become something much darker, and Rymir's claims were now being debated everywhere, from YouTube commentary channels to mainstream outlets that had once ignored him. For Rymir, this wasn't just about proving who his father was anymore. It was about survival. In interviews and court filings, he began painting a picture that sounded less like a family dispute and more like a thriller. He alleged that Jay-Z didn't just use legal strategies to block him, he actively tried to erase him. One of his most explosive claims was financial sabotage. Rymir said that when his godmother, Lily Coley, tried to sell her house to cover mounting legal fees, she discovered a lien on the property. According to him, this lien was directly tied to legal costs imposed by Jay-Z's team, making it nearly impossible for them to move forward without sinking deeper into debt. To Rymir, this wasn't just business as usual, it was a calculated move to crush them financially. But it didn't stop there. Rymir alleged that someone planted a weapon in his car, setting him up for a potential arrest that could have derailed his life completely. He claims police were waiting nearby, ready to swoop in as soon as the evidence was discovered. The only thing that saved him, he says, was security footage that proved the weapon wasn't his. Without it, he believes he might have ended up in prison, another loose and neatly tied up. And then came the allegation that truly shocked people. Rymir said his car was shot up 6 times. No one was injured, but to him, the message was clear. He described it not as random violence, but as a warning: stop pushing, stop asking questions, stop trying to force a man who doesn't want you to exist to acknowledge you. These claims fueled an entirely new narrative, one that wasn't just about JayZ as a father, but JayZ as a man of power. Could someone so influential really go this far to protect his image? Or was Rymir spinning a story so dramatic that it became impossible to disprove? As the accusations escalated, so did the public's fascination. Online, people started digging. They resurfaced old interviews, scrutinized JayZ's lyrics, and pulled apart timelines. Some fans pointed to songs where JayZ rapped about dodging scandals, interpreting them as veiled confessions. Others argued that Rymir was exploiting conspiracy theories to gain sympathy. Then came another twist. Rumors of a second secret child, a daughter JayZ allegedly supports privately but has never acknowledged. According to whispers, both of these alleged children's mothers had passed away under mysterious circumstances, a coincidence that Rymir's supporters claimed was too strange to ignore. And it wasn't just fans fueling the speculation. Industry insiders began to weigh in, adding gasoline to the fire. Nicki Minaj, never one to shy away from controversy, made cryptic posts on social media referencing Rymir's story and calling out JayZ in a way that made headlines. Suddenly, this wasn't just Rymir versus JayZ. It was a conversation about the culture of silence in hip-hop, the way power protects itself, and how many stories like this might be buried under NDAs and legal threats. Meanwhile, JayZ's side stayed mostly quiet, letting court filings do the talking. His team framed Rymir's allegations as delusional and malicious, part of a calculated attempt to extort money. But their silence outside the courtroom did little to stop the story from spreading. In fact, it made things worse. Because, in the court of public opinion, silence can look like guilt. And so the story grew. It stopped being just about Rymir. It became a litmus test. How much are we willing to believe about the people we idolize? If someone like JayZ could be hiding something this big, what does that say about the industry he represents? As July 18th approached, the deadline for JayZ to respond to the California lawsuit, the tension was unbearable. Commentators called it Judgment Day. Would this be the moment Rymir finally got his DNA test? Would it be the day JayZ shut the story down for good? Or would it be, as some speculated, the day everything exploded? Whatever was coming, one thing was clear: this wasn't just a paternity case anymore. This was a battle for control of the narrative, and neither side was backing down. July 18, 2025, after years of filings, dismissals, injunctions, and accusations, this date was supposed to be the moment everything changed. For Rymir, it represented the finish line he'd been chasing for more than a decade, a chance to finally force JayZ to respond to his claims in a federal court. For JayZ, it was the latest and perhaps most serious challenge to the image he'd spent his career building. Fans called it Judgment Day. Online, theories ran wild. Some were convinced JayZ would finally take a DNA test and shut the story down. Others believed Rymir was about to expose something so damaging that it could shake the entire industry. And then, nothing happened. No dramatic court showdown. No televised victory. No public statement from JayZ. Instead, just 4 days later, Rymir abruptly withdrew his case. The announcement wasn't made in a press conference. It wasn't even made through his lawyer. It came through a cryptic post on X, formerly Twitter. Changes were made to my case on July 18th. About 3:30 p.m. This was done due to changes we were not aware of. We will explain soon, but it's all about my mother now. That was it. No further explanation. To JayZ's camp, this was vindication. They celebrated the withdrawal as proof of what they had been saying all along, that Rymir's story was built on lies and desperation. His lawyers argued that this was nothing more than another stunt in a string of frivolous attempts to harass one of the most powerful figures in music. They even moved to have JayZ's legal fees reimbursed, framing the entire ordeal as a waste of time. But to Rymir's supporters, it didn't look like defeat. It looked like strategy. Why would someone fight for over a decade only to quit just as they reached their biggest platform yet? Why post a message suggesting there were changes to the case no one knew about? And why pivot the focus to his mother now, after years of insisting this was about him? His godmother, Lily Coley, doubled down in interviews. She insisted the California lawsuit was never truly about paternity. It was about damages tied to what she called a decade of manipulation, where legal systems had been bent to protect JayZ and destroy Rymir's chances of being heard. She emphasized that neither she, Rymir, nor Wanda had ever been found in contempt of court, despite what JayZ's filings implied. "We followed the rules," she said. "It's everyone else who hasn't." And then came the most shocking claim yet. Rymir alleged that JayZ had been in possession of his DNA since 2011. If that's true, then JayZ already knows the answer to the question at the center of this saga. He knows whether or not Rymir is his son, which raises the bigger question: if JayZ knows, why keep the world in suspense? Some interpreted Rymir's withdrawal as a sign he was preparing for something bigger, something that could shift the focus away from him and toward the story his mother never got to tell. "It's all about my mother now," he wrote. Was this the beginning of a new chapter, a documentary, another lawsuit, or something darker, evidence so explosive it couldn't be revealed in a courtroom? Meanwhile, JayZ remained silent. He didn't need to speak. His lawyers were doing the work for him, building a narrative of a troubled young man chasing fame at the expense of the truth. But silence doesn't stop speculation, it feeds it. And for every headline declaring JayZ victorious, there was another corner of the internet spinning theories about what really happened on July 18th. Did Rymir get paid off? Was he threatened? Or did he uncover something that made him realize this fight wasn't about a DNA test anymore? For now, the answers remain locked behind legal walls and cryptic social media posts. But one thing is certain: the withdrawal didn't end the story. It made it bigger. This story isn't over. In fact, the way it ended or didn't end has made it even more dangerous. For over a decade, Rymir Satterthwaite said his fight was about one thing: forcing the man he believes is his father to acknowledge him. But after withdrawing his biggest case yet, he told the world something different. "It's all about my mother now." What does that mean? Wanda, the woman at the center of this storm, is no longer here to speak for herself, but according to those closest to her. She spent years warning that the truth about JayZ wasn't just about paternity, it was about power. Power that could ruin you if you got in its way. In the months before her death, Wanda reportedly told her godmother that she feared she'd never see justice, not because she lacked proof, but because she was fighting someone who controlled the game from every angle. Rymir's new focus on her suggests he's about to take the story somewhere JayZ may not be able to control. Meanwhile, JayZ has chosen silence. It's the same strategy that's kept him untouchable for years. Let the noise burn itself out. But this time, the noise isn't going away. Social media is relentless. Fans are digging through old interviews, pointing out inconsistencies in timelines, and resurfacing rumors about other alleged secrets. Industry insiders are starting to talk, too. Nicki Minaj's cryptic posts weren't just gossip, they were a signal that even people inside the machine are starting to question how much longer it can keep spinning. And then there's the rumor about a second child, a daughter JayZ allegedly supports privately. Both alleged children's mothers are dead. Both deaths, Rymir's supporters claim, happened under circumstances too coincidental to ignore. True or not, these claims have taken on a life of their own, shaping a narrative that even the best PR machine might not be able to reverse. So, where does this go from here? One possibility: Rymir is preparing for a full-scale expose. A documentary, a book, or another legal strategy that shifts the focus from paternity to systemic corruption. Another possibility: there's evidence, real, undeniable evidence that makes this story even bigger than anyone imagined. And there's a darker possibility: that the forces Rymir says he's fighting are stronger than ever, and whatever comes next might not be under his control at all. Whatever the outcome, one thing is certain: this story has become more than a scandal. It's a test of how much truth can survive when it threatens the foundation of power. Because if Rymir is telling the truth, then one of the most celebrated figures in music has spent decades burying a secret that could destroy him. And if he's lying, then he's managed to hold the world's attention with nothing but persistence, pain, and a story so compelling that people can't stop believing it might be real. Either way, the fallout could change everything, not just for JayZ, not just for Rymir, but for how we see the entire industry they represent. So, what really happened on July 18th? Why did Rymir pull back just when it seemed like he was about to break through? And what does "it's all about my mother now" really mean? The answers are coming, maybe not in a courtroom, maybe not in a press release, but they're coming, and when they do, you're going to want to be here to see it unfold. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't already, because this is only the beginning.